Minecraft texture packs can be laggy if you don't have the best graphics card, and if you don't have the money to spend on a graphics card, that's totally fine, but you still need to know which resolutions of texture packs you can run and which ones you can't. So that's what I will go over today. I'll go over different resolutions of texture packs from the default 16x all the way up to 512x, and say what I would say from my experience and in my opinion is the comfortable minimum and definitely good enough requirements to run each of those. Now when we get to 512x, it's going to be some pretty high requirements. What I noticed is that a lot of high resolution texture packs are best used with shaders because they look better, as you can see with this comparison up on screen. And that is important because I have noticed that I am usually limited by VRAM while trying to record videos with high resolution texture packs or just playing around with them for fun. This is because if you're using a pack with POM shaders, which gives it depth, it uses far more VRAM than the pack does alone without shaders. There is a comparison graph of me turning off shaders and my VRAM usage, which I can think is pretty crazy. So I've noticed that's about 1.75x usage. So if you want to use shaders like complementary or BSL, I would definitely recommend a lower resolution texture pack if it is maxing out your VRAM without the shader on. Now, other than VRAM, card speed is obviously important. If you have like 100 gigabytes of VRAM, which I know doesn't exist, and your card's like as fast as a 980 Ti, it's still not going to go well. So I have a 4070 Super, which means it's pretty fast, but I am constantly running out of VRAM. But if you have a card that's like really slow, but has a lot of VRAM, you might have the opposite problem. So I have a little bit of lag, as you have definitely seen in my videos. So if you have an upper middle class card like mine, which if you can't afford that, that is totally fine. The upper limit with mine is about 512x with POM shaders, and that's 12 gigabytes of VRAM. But I have not confirmed this, but there is a good chance that a older and slower card like a 3060, which I used to have, that is the same amount of VRAM, might only get up to 256x before starting to lag out of control. Now obviously I can't go over every single spec of every single graphics card that's ever been produced, ever, with every single driver, so I'll be doing more broad strokes. Now if you're saying that has a 16 gigabyte, you can probably run 512x confidently, and if you are a mega baller with a 24 gigabyte card, you might run 1024x, and that would be crazy. If you have a card like that and can run a 1024x pack, I would love for you to join my Discord and post some screenshots, since that would be super cool to look at. Now the next thing to consider is what shader are you using. I've noticed that with some shaders like BSL and complementary, I get a lot less lag than with some shaders like SUS. I noticed that SUS in particular is by far the most laggy shader that I have, which means I don't really use it much, but dang, it looks good. It really sucks because obviously the best looking one's the most laggy, but there are some shaders that are more laggy than others, like SUS, for example. So if you really want to run that super high resolution texture pack, you can just use like a lower end shader, like I think complementary, like on low settings. That would probably be the best for performance. But yeah, now if there's other factors like CPU and RAM, but those really don't affect your shaders because, you know, most of your shader and processing power, and this is mostly limited by VRAM, which is GPU bound. But CPU and RAM do affect it. For example, if you are trying to run a high-res texture pack, I do notice that it does use up more of my normal RAM. And if you want to change your RAM, if you're using a Modern launcher or the CurseForge launcher, it's pretty simple. Just go into the settings, find the amount, and in the normal launcher, you have to go into like the version or like the world thing, and then you have to go to advanced, and you should see 2 gigabytes if you haven't changed it yet, and set that number to something higher. I usually notice that Minecraft never uses more than 8 gigabytes even when I'm generating a ton of chunks, so it's not really worth it to like do more than that. So 8 gigabytes is what I use, even though I have 32 installed, but I would never really use more than half your total RAM capacity on it. So if you only have 16 gigabytes, I might do 6, since you want to be able to do other stuff on your computer. But now let's get to my final rankings of different stuff in the texture pack and just some other stuff. But that is about it for today's video. Now I will go over all of my final rankings for what I think is appropriate for each one. So for a 1024x texture pack, I would recommend a fast GPU with 24 plus gigabytes of VRAM. I'm going to say the minimum, and obviously more is fine. And for a 512X, I would recommend 12 at the minimum. If you're trying to run a comfortable speed, I would do 16 or more. 256X, 12 at the minimum, maybe 8. I don't know if it'll work. 128X, I would do 8 gigabytes at the bare minimum. 64X, probably 4 gigabytes at the bare minimum. 32X, again 4 gigabytes, because nothing really nowadays actually goes lower than 4 gigabytes, so it doesn't really matter. And obviously default resolution, you can probably do 4 gigabytes again, but some of these may not work as I don't have a 4 gigabyte card or an 8 gigabyte card to test this with. So again, feel free to leave a comment of you testing and leave your results down below. Now, these are what I think make the game comfortable, in my opinion, for at least the 512 and 256X ones with a 12 gigabyte card. So I would say 256X with 12 gigabytes is comfortable, so is 128. 512 is kind of pushing it, but with that, that is all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, join my Discord, join my channel. Yeah, I have channel memberships, and I'm monetized. Thank you so much for that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.